Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the brilliant rise, the devastating betrayal, and the absolutely catastrophic fall of a nation that came agonizingly close to uniting all of India. At the absolute peak of their power, the Marathas controlled over one-third of the Indian subcontinent. Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. These were the warriors who actually defeated the mighty Mughals. They literally humiliated powerful Nawabs, and their cavalry rode all the way from the Deccan Plateau right to the gates of Delhi. They were, without a doubt, the greatest indigenous power India had seen in centuries. They made rival empires completely tremble. But here's the profound mystery we're going to unravel today. How did an empire that achieved all of that, an empire that completely dismantled the Mughal war machine, just disappear within a few decades? It's a story that tells us so much about how power is built and, honestly, how quickly it can be lost. Part 1. The Vision of Shivaji. Let's rewind to the 17th century. We're in the rugged, unforgiving hills of the Deccan Plateau, where a young man named Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj dared to do the impossible. Born in 1630, Shivaji didn't just inherit power, right? He built a kingdom entirely from scratch. His strategic brilliance was just incredible. He was this brilliant warrior who carved out immense forts right in the Sahyadri Mountains. He outsmarted the Bijapur Sultanate, and he repeatedly evaded the massive Mughal army. But he wasn't just a fighter, he was a visionary. He built a navy, which was incredibly forward-thinking at the time. He introduced these devastating guerrilla warfare tactics, and he instituted a local administration rooted entirely in the local language and culture. Now, what's truly fascinating here is the profound ideological foundation he left behind when he died in 1680. He called his kingdom Swart Raja, which literally translates to self-rule. He left behind this incredibly powerful, enduring belief that Indians could govern themselves. And that idea was the absolute bedrock of everything that followed. Part 2. The Empire of the Peshwas. Let's look at how Shivaji's vision exploded under the genius of the Peshwas, the prime ministers who effectively became the empire's rulers after his time. Under their leadership, the Maratha Confederacy just expanded like wildfire. By the mid-1700s, they were an unstoppable force. We're talking control over Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan, and their eyes firmly locked on the ultimate prize, Delhi. They were sweeping across the subcontinent with just incredible momentum. Part 3. The Tragedy of Panipat. In 1761, the Marathas marched north in massive numbers, nearly 100,000 soldiers and 200,000 camp followers, to challenge the invading Afghan ruler Ahmad Shah Durrani. This happened on the cursed ground of Panipat, which had already claimed two previous empires. The clash on January 14th was, simply put, a complete bloodbath. It remains one of the bloodiest single-day battles in human history. The Marathas were completely encircled, their supply lines had been cut for months, so the soldiers were literally starving. And crucially, they'd been completely abandoned by key allies. The Jat rulers, the Rajputs, the Nawab of Awadh, they all refused to support them. And then, the devastating Afghan artillery barrages opened fire. By evening, the Maratha lines were totally overwhelmed. The tragic human cost here is just staggering. An estimated 40,000 to 75,000 Maratha soldiers died in a single day. Let that number sink in for a moment. Among the dead were brilliant leaders like the young Peshwa Vishwasrao and the great general Vishwasrao Bhau. As one historian put it, Panipat was the day India lost its last chance at independence for nearly 2 centuries. The devastating news of this loss broke the reigning Nana Sahib Peshwa so completely that he literally died of grief just months later. It was a near-fatal blow to the subcontinent's power structure. Part 4. A Fractured Phoenix. But here is what makes them so extraordinary. Incredibly, they didn't collapse immediately. Like a phoenix, new leaders rose up, they rebuilt the Confederacy, and remarkably, they reasserted their dominance over much of North India by the 1780s. But, and this is a massive but, they had a fatal flaw. They were a divided confederacy. Even though they were covered territorially, they were made up of these 5 powerful semi-independent chiefs. And while they shared a heritage, every single one of them prioritized their own ambitions, their own armies, and their own internal conflicts over the survival of a unified nation. Part 5. The Final Surrender. This brings us to the beginning of the end. Because while the Marathas were completely consumed by their internal conflicts, signing separate treaties, playing both sides, trusting absolutely no one, a new threat was quietly growing stronger on the coasts. A highly organized colonial threat, the British East India Company. The British relentlessly fought them 3 times over 40 years. It actually started with a humiliating British defeat in the First War, ending in 1782. But because of those widening internal cracks in the Maratha leadership we just talked about, the British kept pushing. In the Second War, brilliant British generals like Arthur Wellesley systematically dismantled Maratha power in the north. And finally, the Third War delivered the absolute killing blow. When the last Peshwa, Bajirao II, a man who was far more consumed by political intrigue than actual statecraft, finally decided to declare war on the British, it was just way too little, too late. The great armies that had once swept across India were now fighting without coordination, without unity, and without trust. One by one, their great fortresses fell, and on June 3, 1818, the Peshwa surrendered. The office that drove Maratha glory was abolished, and he was sent into comfortable exile. The empire was officially over. The Marathas came closer to forging a unified Indian state than anyone since Ashoka's Maurya Empire. They had the brilliance, the administrative talent, the cultural pride, and the sheer will. But their tragic fall leaves us with a really powerful lesson. Empires are not just built by swords, they're held together by solidarity. It's a stark reminder that when internal unity breaks and when personal ambition overrides collective survival, failing to recognize external threats until it's too late, well, even the greatest powers on Earth will collapse. It's actually a really striking parallel to how we think about modern organizations and leadership today, isn't it? No matter how formidable your exterior might be, a lack of internal cohesion will always be your greatest vulnerability. Their legacy, however, still lives on in the magnificent forts of the Sahyadri Mountains and in the enduring memory of Shivaji. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought to answer in the comments below. Based on everything we've looked at today, which Maratha leader do you think was the greatest? I would absolutely love to know your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.